All right, welcome back. It's Brock and Abigail, and today we're starting a brand new series. We're going behind the scenes on one of the most action-packed books you'll ever read, the Gospel of Mark. Now, I know what you might be thinking, it's just another old dusty book, right? Well, forget all that. Seriously, think of this story like an action movie, and we're going to break down everything. The director, the script, and the epic punchline that literally gives away the whole plot in the very first sentence. But before we get into that, I've got a question for you. If your life right now was a movie, what would its tagline be? You know, the one sentence on the poster that sums everything up. Well, that's kind of a hard question, right? But think about it for a second. Because the book we're jumping into today, Mark, kicks off with one of the boldest taglines in history. Okay, let's get into it.
So every great movie has a director, right? The one that's calling the shots. So in the book of Mark, this guy is named John Mark. Now, it's easy to picture these biblical figures as like superheroes who had it all together, but that's just not the case with John Mark. And honestly, with a lot of the biblical figures. But John Mark was a real person, and he actually had a really messy past. In fact, his own life is maybe the ultimate comeback story. So picture this. John Mark gets this once-in-a-lifetime shot. He's young, and he gets to go on the road with the absolute rock stars of the early church. We're talking Paul and Barnabas on their very first big mission trip. The stakes were really high, and he was right there in the thick of it. So it kind of sounds like the start of an amazing career, doesn't it? Well, not exactly.
Yeah, it didn't go so well. In Acts 15, 36 through 40, we see that he quit. He just left. And the Bible uses the word deserted. Now, that's a strong word. This wasn't just him getting a little homesick and wanting to go home. In the eyes of Paul, one of the most important leaders ever, this was a massive failure. John Mark bailed on the team, and it actually caused a huge fight between Paul and Barnabas.
But this is where the story gets awesome. It's a true redemption arc. He starts out by joining the mission, but then he fails big time. But thankfully, this guy Barnabas, whose name actually means son of encouragement, believes in him and gives him a second chance. And over time, Mark proves himself so completely that Paul, the same guy who totally wrote him off, later says that Mark is useful to him for his ministry. And the ultimate comeback? Well, God chose this guy, the quitter, to write this powerful, incredible story about Jesus.
So here's the big takeaway from all that. Your failures do not have to be the end of your story, ever. John Mark's early career was defined by a massive screw-up, but God used that same person to write one of the most important books in the world. It's just a powerful reminder that God isn't looking for perfect people. He's looking for people who are just willing.
Okay, so that's our director. Now let's talk about the script itself. So if John Mark is the director, then the book he wrote is obviously his movie. And trust me, it's not some slow, boring drama. This thing is a hit. It's fast, it's intense, and it gets straight to the point.
And want to know how we know that? Well, in this super short 16-chapter book, the word immediately shows up over 40 times. I mean, think about that. Jesus heals someone, and immediately we're on to the next thing. He calls his disciples, and immediately they follow. There's no wasted time. It creates this feeling of nonstop action and urgency.
And to really get it, just think for a second how different Mark is from the other Gospels. Matthew, Luke, and John will often pause for these long sections of Jesus' teachings, but Mark, he just keeps the camera moving. It's all about what Jesus did. The scenes are short, they're punchy, and they're always driving the story forward, which, by the way, makes it one of the easiest books in the Bible to jump into and read.
It really does feel like a movie script. It just kind of cuts from one scene to the next. Mark isn't wasting a single word because he has one goal. He wants you to see the power and the authority of Jesus in action over and over and over again. So if this book is an action movie, you gotta ask, who was the original audience? Who was this premiere for? Because this wasn't written for people just sitting comfortably in a library somewhere. This was written for people whose world felt like it was on fire.
Yeah, the very first people to read Mark's story were likely Christians living in Rome, and it's very possible that they were facing intense, brutal persecution. So every single day was filled with fear. They were surrounded by bad news. They didn't need a long philosophical essay. They needed an urgent message of hope. They needed to be reminded that Jesus was powerful, that he was in control, and that following him was worth everything. And Mark gives them that hope in the very first sentence. He puts the entire point of this book, the whole plot, right there in verse 1. It's the ultimate spoiler, and it's easily the most important sentence in the entire book.
And here it is, that punchline we talked about up front. Mark 1:1. This is the good news about Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God. That's it. Everything else in the next 16 chapters is just evidence to prove this one statement. So real quick, let's break down these three huge ideas: good news, Messiah, and Son of God.
Okay, so first, good news. For an audience that was surrounded by nothing but bad news, persecution, fear, death, this phrase was everything. This wasn't just some nice thought. It was a bold announcement that God, He had a solution for all of the brokenness in the world. It's the ultimate message of hope. And the name Jesus, or Yeshua in Hebrew, actually means Yahweh is salvation.
All right, next up, the Messiah. Now, the Roman Christians lived under the absolute rule of Caesar. He was the most powerful man in the world. But Mark kicks off his story by declaring that the real king has arrived. See, the Messiah, Jesus, is the promised deliverer, the one true king who came to establish God's kingdom and make all things right. It's a hugely risky political and spiritual statement to make.
And finally, we get to the biggest claim of all, the Son of God. Let's be clear, this was not just Mark's way of saying Jesus was a good teacher or just a cool prophet. This was a claim of divinity. It meant Jesus had a unique relationship and a shared identity with God Himself. He wasn't just sent from God. He is God, with all the power and all the authority that comes with that.
So why does this 2,000-year-old story, this ancient book of the Bible, still matter for us today? Well, because it's not just a story you're supposed to hear. It's an invitation for you to respond.
So here's a really simple way to approach reading the book of Mark. As you read it, which we encourage you to do, just think of it in 3 steps. First, look for the evidence. How does Jesus prove who He says He is? Second, watch the reactions. How do all the different people respond to Him? Because not everybody's a fan. And third, decide what your own response is going to be, because Mark's story doesn't just let you sit on the sidelines.
So I really want to challenge you. Read the book throughout the week. Experience the story for yourself. Seriously, don't just take our word for it. It's short, it's fast-paced, and it's going to challenge you to answer the most important question there is. Who do you say that Jesus is? Because the answer to that question will change everything about your life.